Hello, welcome to episode 3 in the IPF Payments podcast series. In the last 2 episodes, we gave an introduction to IPF. We talked a little bit about the connector framework, which talks about how we facilitate integration in IPF. In this episode, I'm joined by my colleague Tom Baldwin, and we're going to be talking about the architectural principles that we use in IPF. So, Tom, do you want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about some of the architectural principles that we're leveraging?
Certainly. So I'm Tom Baldwin. I'm the head of product architecture for IPF. And with IPF, we're trying to use more modern approaches to architecture, things like command query responsibility segregation alongside event sourcing, domain-driven design. We have a domain-specific language, and we're also using ideas like hexagonal architecture.
Fantastic. So you mentioned CQRS and event sourcing. So this is where we leverage events that we define in the DSL, and then we segregate out the write side and the read side. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what benefits it brings?
Yeah, certainly. So as you say, they're two architectural approaches which often get used together because they work so well together. If we start with event sourcing, everything in IPF is represented as an event, whether that's a transition in the state of the payment, or whether it's a transition in the state of the system. And by having that series of events, we can always reconstruct the state of the system at any point in time, much in the same way that double entry bookkeeping allows accountants to reconstruct the state of a financial transaction. So having that journal of events allows us to recover from system failures. We can always recover when we lose a server, for example, but it also gives us a good source of truth about what's been going on in the system. And that's something that's very useful for operators to query when they want to investigate the state of a payment transaction, for example. Now, we don't want operator actions to have an impact on the low latency and high throughput performance of the key payment processing system. And that's where CQRS comes in. By separating things out into the write side, which is that event journal used for persisting system state, and a separate read side, which is a separate database store, which is used for those operators to query the system, we can ensure the performance of the system. And the other thing that allows us to do is tailor the read side to the needs of the operators. So the way that the database is structured is tailored to what the operators are looking to do. They can run queries which are specific to their business needs and not be constrained by the system design. And there's another benefit that having that event stream gives us. It gives us a great source, it gives us a great point to extend the system from. So we've recently introduced a payment status notifications component that consumes that event stream, and it transforms that event stream, filters that event stream to provide a running update on the status of a payment. And that's something that we can easily extend the system building on event sourcing.
Fantastic. And you also mentioned hexagonal architecture. I've also heard this called ports and adapters architecture, onion architecture. Can you tell us a bit more about what this is and how we use it in IPF?
Yeah, certainly. So the hexagonal part is perhaps a little bit of a misnomer because there's nothing inherently six-sided about hexagonal architecture. That's why onion architecture is perhaps an easier way to visualize it sometimes. But all three of those names refer to the same concept, that you start at the heart of your design with the concerns of the application, the concerns of the domain, and you expand outwards from there towards the supporting systems. So, for example, if you need a database to store a particular type of information, you would define a port which looks towards that database. The port is defined in terms of the needs of the application for that particular purpose, and it is then connected to a real implementation of the database using an adapter. And you'll have many ports connected for an application, depending on what the application is trying to do, of course, but you'll have many ports, each with an adapter, and you can have more than one adapter. So you might have an adapter for MongoDB and a second adapter for Cosmos DB, and so on. You can connect your application through to many different places. And because those ports are defined in terms of the requirements of the application and they're focused on a small part of the functionality, creating an adapter for a different system is quite straightforward. You're not trying to create something as universal as a device driver, say. You are simply trying to meet the needs of that port with a supporting system.
Right. So it's clear we're leveraging modern architectural principles. How are our clients coping with this? Are they adapting to this modern approach? Are they able to work with our approaches?
Yeah, so for some of them, it can be a little bit of a mindset shift to start with. They've got a lot of experience with more traditional architectural patterns, more traditional delivery patterns as well. But once they start to see how this gives us the flexibility to integrate to all of their different systems, how it gives us the flexibility to adapt IPF to the way that they want to work, they really start to see the benefit of it. And that flexibility and adaptability is illustrated by the extension point I mentioned earlier on. For example, we've got one client who wants to use those events to create an audit trail, and they've easily been able to extend IPF to consume those events, filter and transform them in a way which is specific to their business, to their processes, and adapt IPF quickly and easily in a way that perhaps wouldn't have been possible with some of the more traditional architectural models.
Fantastic. No, thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks for joining us. It's clear that that these architectural principles are meaning that our solution is benefiting from it, and this is resonating strongly with our clients and prospects. Thanks everybody for listening in to this instalment of the IPF Payments podcast series. Yeah, we appreciate you joining, and we look forward to the next instalment. Thank you very much.